one day at a press conference, so frustrated because everybody wanted to talk about anthrax and terrorism, and a reporter inadvertently in a room this size filled with reporters said to me, well, Surgeon General, what is the most challenging problem that you're facing? And of course, this is after 9/11 and anthrax. I said, obesity. Dead silence. Nobody knew what to ask me. And they said, why? I said, because it's the terror within. It is destroying us, destroying our society from within. And unless we do something about it, the magnitude of the dilemma will dwarf 9/11 or any other terrorist event that you can point out to me.
The country is facing a dangerous weight problem.
U.S. Surgeon General says 1 in 3 American children is overweight.
Childhood obesity has tripled in the last 30 years.
Almost 1 in 5 American 4-year-olds are now considered to be obese.
We, the adults of the last 4 generations, have blessed our children with the destiny of a shorter lifespan than their own parents.
Left unabated, obesity would overtake smoking as the leading preventable cause of death in this country.
If we don't get a handle on this, what's going to happen is that we're going to get kids developing illnesses at a very early age. And some of these illnesses can actually kill them.
We're looking at within 10 years, 30 or 35% of kids insulin dependent.
Doctors say obese patients are more at risk for type 2 diabetes, hypertension, even cancer. On average, obese people spend more than $1,400 per year more for medical expenses, $600 more on prescriptions alone.
Michael Pollan reported in the New York Times that just 2 illnesses, diabetes and obesity, is now costing the country $260 billion. That's $250 billion.
If we continue on our current path, in just 10 years, nearly 50% of all Americans will be obese. Not just overweight, they will be obese. So now let's just think about how much we'll be spending on health care.
It's going to break the healthcare system. And we're seeing now that if we don't do something about this, it'll be unmanageable.
Obesity can even impact economic development and job creations because CEOs and entrepreneurs worried about high employee health care costs are sometimes reluctant to set up shop in areas with high obesity rates.
Mr. Chairman, with 11.7 million employees, the restaurant industry is our nation's largest employer outside of government. I'm testifying here today on behalf of the National Restaurant Association, which is the leading business association for the restaurant industry, to offer my support for H.R. 339, the Personal Responsibility in Food Consumption Act.
And big business just keeps pushing it as its choice, its choice, its choice, its exercise, yet they spend $20 billion a year marketing non-nutrient foods to kids.
But more importantly, this legislation focuses attention on personal responsibility and the voluntary menu choices we all make rather than on more costly and unwarranted litigation.
This is not the same obesity epidemic to everyone. In fact, it is really an exercise deficit.
Individuals have responsibility. It's challenging, though, however, to say that they bear the largest responsibility for this. When you're looking at the marketing budgets of these companies compared to what I'm supposed to do with my kids and I've got them in the grocery store, it's a challenge.
The average American child sees 10,000 food advertisements per year on television. 95% of those are for sugared cereals, soft drinks, fast foods, or candy. A parent who eats every meal every day for the whole year with their child, that parent will have 1,000 cracks at their child compared to 10,000 for the food industry. So it's not a fair fight.
Food companies are under enormous pressure from Wall Street to make more money faster.
How much responsibility do they have in their marketing practices to children? They're satisfying their shareholders. How much government responsibility is there?
Creating food that is making lower income people sick because we're subsidizing certain foods.
The reason why sugar is so cheap is because corn is so highly subsidized. And the reason we have high fructose corn syrup in everything from hamburgers to hamburger rolls to hot dogs to gum to soda is because the corn is so overproduced and so cheap.
These large food industry players are huge parts of economies. You know, maybe the boards of directors have sort of revolving door links with government positions. They recommended less than 10% of your caloric intake should be sugars. This was a definite recommendation, less than 10%. The sugar industry, food and manufacturers were upset by these recommendations and knew governments would have then evidence on which to base policies. The Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services flew to Geneva with food manufacturers, they had a plane full, to complain more about this report. When the 57th World Health Assembly got together and passed the resolution, what they came up with was limit the intake of free sugars. The whole piece about limiting sugar to less than 10% was gone. That's only one example. There were other ones on restricting ads to children, on limiting fat intake.